Welcome to Dad Space. It's Dave, your friendly dad, I guess. Well, maybe not your dad, but I do have 3 kids. Maybe they're listening. I'm not sure. But hey, it's Dave. I'm happy to be with you on the podcast. Today I have James Macdonald from the UK, right? And James has a podcast, and he also has a book. And we're here to talk to first-time dads today. So, if you know a first-time dad, it's a perfect podcast for you to share. I would love to go to your phone, whatever you're listening on right now. There's probably a little share button somewhere, and you can share this with somebody. Hey, you got to know a first-time dad somewhere, right? Possibly. So, share this episode with them, and we're going to talk about all things dad here on the podcast. And happy to have you with us. James Macdonald, podcaster, author, and he's got an amazing day job as well. So here it is, James Macdonald on the podcast. Glad to have you here. Here we go. With other podcasters and other creative people, James joined me from his kitchen table, and we had a great conversation around being a dad and supporting men. And that's exactly what Dad Space is all about. Dadspace.ca is the website. We love having other dads on. Whether you have something to promote or not, I would love to have you on the show. Your dad's story is important. People can be helped by what you've lived through and what your experience is as a dad. The door's open. I'd love to have you on the podcast. Dadspace.ca, it's a Canadian website. Dadspace.ca is the website. I'd love to have you come over there, connect with me, and let's get you on the show. And let's have you tell your dad's story right here on Dad Space. We're here to help men just like you, no matter where you are in your dad journey. That's why Dad Space is here, and looking to talk to you. So head over there and let's connect. Again, James is from the UK, and he has an amazing day job, pretty spectacular things that he does during the day. But on top of that, he also is committed to helping men, specifically with men's mental health, being a father. My time with James Macdonald here on Dad Space. Make sure you share this, please, please, please. And go check out James's podcast as well. Links in the show notes. Here we go. Okay, everyone, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have everyone here. My guest is joining me from the beautiful UK, and James is here, James Macdonald. So excited to have James on the podcast. We'll be talking about his ebook. His book's called First Time Dad, and so happy to have James here on the podcast. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, likewise, David. Thank you so much for having me as a guest on your show. I'm really excited. And yeah, we're in Brighton on the east coast, on the south coast of the UK. So literally, if you were in London and went straight down about 50 miles, you'd hit Brighton, and that's where we are.
And we talked earlier. You have an interesting thing that you do, your day job, I guess you'd say, and you help people there in your community. Can you share a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, of course. I work for the council and work in the Brighton Seafront office. So we are the lifeguard service all year round. So in the lifeguard service season, which is from May through to September, we manage a team of about 20 lifeguards. But then all year round, out of season, we are the lifeguards. So we're all qualified beach lifeguards, which is a qualification we have to renew every year. We have to do a 400-meter swim test in 7.5 minutes. And I have had to go in the sea at all times of the year and pull people out of the sea. And sadly, I've had to do sort of CPR and, use a defibrillator. And we have quad bikes that we have to sort of go up and down and patrol the beaches. And it's an interesting job. It can be very fulfilling. It can be very emotional, but it's an interesting job. And I think it's one of the reasons one of the main drivers between setting up a podcast to support men, and sort of specifically men like myself who have struggled with their mental health. A lot of the incidents we are called to support are mental health related or sort of suicide, unfortunately. But yeah, no, it's a great job. And I've got a pretty amazing view from the office. I've got the sea, and I get to go in the sea on my lunch break, and yeah, it's interesting.
It's great for somebody like myself who's kind of in somewhat far away from the ocean where I am. I would love to do that. I had a chance to go to Nova Scotia here in Canada and I was out there for a week. And in the evenings, I had a rental car, and I was by myself. So I tell people in the office, I'm going to go to the ocean, and they're like, "Go
Awesome.
to the ocean?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've never been there. I've never seen the ocean before." They're like, "I live here. I see it every day." You kind of forget how gorgeous and how amazing that is, right?
Well, that's the thing. I think you take it for granted. I mean, I bike along what's called the Undercliff, which is a sort of a walkway. It's about 6 miles from where I live to where I work. And yeah, I cycle past the sea every day, and like you do take it for granted when it's on your
Yeah.
doorstep, definitely.
And now I live near Niagara Falls. Excuse me. And Niagara Falls is a natural wonder, and people travel the world to see Niagara Falls. And I'm like, yeah, it's just over there. I'm
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, it is. You got to stop and realize the amazing beauty that's around you, because that's a big important thing, I think.
yeah, I agree.
Good. So let's talk a little bit about your book. Can you take me back to the beginning of the idea to write First Time Dad?
Yeah, I the book is a 42-week guide about basically the 42-week guides of pregnancy, and it's very much from a point of view of I give an account of what's happening week by week for your child. So as it's development, developing what sort of growth stage it's at, but also what's happening not only for your partner, her body, but also potentially your relationship, sort of the pressures, what may be going on, what barriers may happen, from week 1 to week 42. Because I think certainly when I became a dad in 2012, we've got 3 children. I was surprised and a bit disappointed that there seemed to be not a lot out there for men to kind of prepare you for, the biggest life changing thing you will ever go through of becoming a parent. And I kind of wanted to write my sort of recollections of it. I've struggled with my mental health for years with sort of depression, and OCD, and I found that I think just the stress and potentially fatigue of going through pregnancy and trying to support my partner and trying to help her, and I think just also coming to the idea myself that I'm about to become a parent. My life is going to change beyond all recognition, and I don't know what that's going to be. That can trigger your mental health. I hope the book's entertaining. I hope there's elements of pathos in there. I hope there's elements of humor, because there's a lot of humor in parenting and relationships and just what happens. I think there's a lot of funny things that go on. But yeah, no, it's on Amazon now. It's in paperback, but it's also you can also buy it on Kindle. I think I've sold 22 copies so far. Don't get me wrong, if it helps to pay the mortgage, that's fantastic. But what I'm really excited about is I really hope it helps some dads, maybe some dads who struggle with their mental health and are just a bit overwhelmed by, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm about to become a dad, and it's putting a lot of pressure on me or my partner or our relationship. So hopefully there's something in there that might help someone.
Nice, nice. That's the nice thing too, is when you go looking for a resource and you don't find it, then it's like, well, maybe I'm the person to write that. I'm the person to make it, right?
Yeah, I think well, it's that you be the change. I think it's Gandhi that said, "Be the change you want to see in the world."
Yes, yeah.
Or I might have been Winston Churchill. I think I'm mixing my quotes, but I think, yeah, I think that's the thing. If there's something that you have an idea or you have a perspective you think might help someone, specifically at the moment where life is very difficult for lots of reasons, people around the world. I mean, economically, life is very stressful. If you've managed to find a way out of an adverse situation, either a relationship or financial, or I don't know. I think I'm a firm believer that everyone has a book in them. I really believe that everyone has a story or a perspective or a way of looking at something that could help someone else.
I love that. Yeah, I agree with you. I believe everyone does have a story in them. The big thing is, though, I think, is people maybe get stuck in the early days of writing their story, that A, who am I to write this book? Or B, I don't know how. So was there anybody there helping you at the beginning for writing your book?
Um, no, but what you've just said does resonate. I think everyone has an imposter syndrome when they start something. I just think that's natural, whether it's a podcast or a YouTube channel or a new job. I think everyone I think to be honest with you, I think if you don't have an imposter syndrome, that's dangerous. I think if you don't have self-doubt and therefore, I think self-doubt can give you that drive and that motivation to think, I've really got to try this. But I'd rather have an element of self imposter syndrome than delusion. I think if you're writing something, I'm amazing, this is brilliant, then I think you're going to struggle. Whereas I think if you're a bit more realistic and maybe think, well, I'm going to write something, but it might not be my first draft, might not be brilliant, and you're quite humble about it, and you're prepared to show people and prepared for feedback, then you're more likely to actually write something that's successful. Because ultimately, and this might sound harsh, if you're trying to write a book that you would like to sell on Amazon, I think the one thing you've got to remember is actually no one cares specifically about you yet. Or your story personally. What they're wanting is, why am I going to buy this book? What will this book you? And I think a good book takes someone from A to B, teaches them something, but does it in an entertaining way. So it's not like you were at school and you're reading books and like, this feels like school. A good book, you should come out feeling like you've been on the journey with the author and you've learned something really important that they learned through the story. And I think certainly becoming a parent helped me to trust my own ability a bit, which I think if you've anyone out there who struggles with mental health or who has OCD or intrusive thoughts, trusting yourself is a very big problem, whether it's checking doors or just doubting yourself or having intrusive thoughts. So for me, doubting my own ability is quite a strong theme in my life naturally. And I think just the idea of, who am I to write a book, and you kind of worry about things. And actually, I think it's good to do these things, to challenge yourself and give it a go. Worst case scenario, it ends up not being the success you think it is, or even worse, it becomes a bit of a nightmare and it becomes an amusing story you tell to your friends in the pub or over, a dinner party. But you learn so much by challenging yourself and doing things a bit out of the ordinary. But I think anyone can write a book. It's like anything. Anyone can write a book. Anyone can start a podcast. Anyone can set up a YouTube channel. You just have to start. That's the hardest thing. And my advice to anyone who's starting would be just start, but maybe don't tell anyone. Because I think like when you plant, you're planting a very precious seed. If you get too many opinions, maybe from people who don't know why you're doing it or enough about it, enough, opinions of people who may be intimidated by your drive of wanting to do something differently might kill the idea. My advice would be do something kind of under the radar and actually to the point where you're enjoying it so much, or it's starting to get its own momentum. And that's not, that could be anything. That can be, because it's hard when you're trying to do things creatively on your own, like podcasting or, because it's not everyone can do it. Everyone's got an opinion on it, but not everyone can do it. And ultimately, all I did was get up, early when the kids or the family were asleep, and I wrote for 20 minutes every day for about 3 or 4 months, which some days I did longer than 20 minutes. Some days I did less. Yeah. You have to be versatile, but I just stuck to it. And after a couple of weeks, it started to become interesting enough for me to want to get up and do it. It didn't feel like school. I was telling a story and reliving the story of the first time, becoming a parent for the first time. You kind of need to get to that point. I think, anyway, it just helps.
And so you not only have the book, but you have your podcast. And what I love on your podcast is you have a link to your book, which is kind of nice for your listeners. They can actually access the book. That's very kind of you. Talk about your podcast and the connection between your podcast and your book.
So my podcast is called Dad Mind Matters, and it's trying to help men safely navigate family life without losing their minds. So I think family life is hard. I think becoming a husband or a father is incredibly hard. You only ever get 50% of the votes, so you can work incredibly hard, and things can still go wrong and can be a challenge. So and a little bit like when I first became a parent, there didn't seem to be much in the way of for dads. to know. To be honest with you, I don't think there's much for men. If you search sort of podcasts for men, there's not an awful lot out there. I mean, there are some great ones, like yours and what you're doing, but there's not anything like the amount that I think of support there is for women.
Right.
And granted, women are going through the physical changes. They are growing a child. So yes, they are doing the lion's share of the work, but the change for a man becoming a parent, you become something, the minute that child is out, you become something very different. And that could be really difficult to get your head around. So Dad Mind Matters is a podcast I post twice a week, and on all sorts of topics to do with parenting, marriage, and mental health. And yeah, I mean, I happily will send anyone who wants a digital copy of the book. All I would ask is that they give me a review of it on Amazon once they've had a look at it. But and I'm sure this resonates with you, or maybe it does. The interesting thing actually with anything like podcasting is actually when you get the feedback and someone you've managed to really connect with someone on the other side of the world who you're probably never going to meet, but you've created something that has resonated with them, maybe helped them. That's such an amazing thing to be able to do. And once that happens, and it will inevitably, I think, if you start podcasting or writing or producing any content, yes, you might get some negative comments, but you will get people say, I really enjoyed that, or that really made me laugh, or that really made me think of it from a different perspective. And I think that's a really positive thing that we need more of in the world.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through your podcast, and I love the titles of your episodes. So many great things about, just your relationship with your son, your daughter, how to support your partner. Like, there's so many great topics that you have here. Where are you pulling your ideas for your podcast from?
Inspiration of maybe good TED Talks I've written. A lot of it is a combination of really, I don't know, mistakes I've made as a parent, things that have gone well, usually through trial, usually through error. But anything that's worked, or I remember has worked, I try and think, that I could break that down into a 5 or 10, 10 things you need to take to the park when you take your child to the park, or 10 ways to encourage, to strengthen your relationship with your son or your daughter or your mother-in-law, or your, ways to sort of keep your marriage exciting and the passion, because it's hard. And I don't think these things they are on the internet, they are there. But I just think that there could be more of them. There could be more people that say, God, I feel really stuck. I think it's difficult for a man sometimes. I think our role is a lot more blurred than maybe our father's role were. My dad went out to work. I mean, he used to joke with my mum that I think he changed one of the three of me, my brother and sister's nappies. My role isn't like that. It's more 50-50. My wife works full time, I work full time, but we both do an equal share of the housework and the childcare. And actually, I love that, but I don't think you're as prepared, because I don't think a man will naturally have the same physical link potentially with your child, because the mother-child bond is naturally potentially going to be much stronger.
Yeah. So let's talk to the dad that's going to be a new dad, maybe coming up this week. James, what do we say to them? Because I feel the same way you did. Just a lack of preparation and a lack of resources out there for us as new dads. What would you say to them as they prepare to make that transition from being, maybe they were a single guy just doing life on their own with no responsibilities except for themselves? Then you go into a relationship and you have that kind of commitment to where you're supporting another person as your partner and spouse, but now there's a new life coming into your world, and you're going to be a father for the rest of your life at that moment. How do we prepare for that?
I think the one thing that trumps, and it's said so often that it's a bit of a cliched soundbite, but I think the one thing that a resource you can't have enough of is kindness, and that is as much about being kind to yourself as it is other. Everyone's going to do parenting differently, and to an extent, every child is unique. So every child will need a different type of support, parenting support. You will make a load of mistakes, but it's really important that you don't beat yourself up about it. And instead of thinking, I'm not doing well at this every time something goes wrong, or, just say, okay, I've just found a way. I've just found a way not to do it again. And just try and find, there is a lot of humor in parenting. There's a lot of, and I think if you can keep your sense of humor and be really kind to your partner, and just remember that whatever you're doing is your best, even if to other people it might not look that good or might not look as good. It's your best. Everyone's doing their best. Certainly when it comes to, I think certainly comes to your children, naturally you can't help but do your best. You can be terrible in other areas of your life, but the one thing I think that when it comes to, children, you just love these children that you create. They can absolutely infuriate you and push your buttons and be, more frustrating and challenging than anything else you'll ever do in your life. But you also will do anything for them. You'll lie down on the road for them. You'll do, obviously not literally, but you know what I mean. You do anything for your children, which is a very liberating feeling. Because until I became a parent, I don't think I really understood the concept of unconditional love. I think that's when you actually believe, oh my good, I adore this little person in my life, and I just want to. And I think that's becoming a dad's given me a lot of drive, and I think maybe a lot of courage that I didn't have to do things like set up a podcast and write a book, because you'll always be much braver for your children than you are for yourself, I think. And often, sometimes, whenever I felt nervous about trying anything new, I kind of think, well, hang on. You need to do this for them. You need to do this because you're creating a roadmap. This needs to be an example of when they're challenging in life and they're thinking, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do. You think, well, actually, I remember Dad, writing 10 awful books, and then number 11 wasn't bad, number 12 was all right. I think you need to show that resilience. And instead of and just kind of say, look, I'm enjoying it. It's fun. It's fun learning, because I think there's a danger that when you finish school or you get into your 30s or 40s, you think, I'm done with learning. And I don't think you are. Yeah. I think you learn. I mean, I'm sure you can relate what you learn when you set up a podcast. Just the editing and just the physical understanding of the components of. It's interesting, and it's like once you start, it's like, this is amazing, and you get some feedback on it. So yeah, sorry, I gave you an incredibly long-winded answer.
No, I like it.
My answer
One thing that
go on.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, my advice to anyone about to become a parent is just be kind to yourself. Don't take too much interest in what other people are doing. It's not relevant. Certainly on social media, everyone's hiding behind. The people who look like they've got the perfect family. It's probably very, very cherry picked and filtered. Real life is hard, but it's wonderful, and just throw yourself into it, and just keep your sense of humor, and just be really kind to yourself and to your partner, and you'll be fine. That's all you need.
Yeah. I think somebody told me when my firstborn was born, that in that moment you'll realize that forever your heart will beat outside of you in your child.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a piece of you has now left you,
and
it exists now in the world. And so for me, I'm an empty nester with my wife. So my 3 kids are gone on and doing their thing. So my heart is beating somewhere today. I don't know what they're up to or where they're at, or did they have lunch? Are they working? Are they healthy? I haven't talked to them today yet. So my heart is beating outside of me somewhere today, doing something. And that's a weird feeling to have a little piece of you, right, to do that. So
yeah, I bet it is. That's nice. I mean, it's a lovely metaphor. Yeah. Or metaphor, I don't know. It's a lovely example of what you and I think you're right. I think once you're a parent,
right,
you're always going to be a parent, even when they've left the home. I imagine in some ways it's even more worrying, because you're like, are they okay? Are they working? Are they happy? Are they, at least when they're in the house, right, you have an element of control. You can I know they're eating because I've fed them some food.
Yeah, exactly. But the one thing I love too as a parent is when you get feedback about your kids from an outside source, whether that's a parent, a teacher, somebody in the community. Wow, you're a great kid. You're amazing. You're you're thoughtful. You're kind. You're gentle. Those are all the lessons you pour into your kids early on as a parent. And then to see that come out when they're away from home and other people noticing it, that's for me, that's a big thing for me. I love when people recognize that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And actually, the things I want for my children to be, obviously, I want them to have happy, successful lives, but I I'd like them to be kind people. That would be that's important to me. And I think I would put that as a quality far beyond sort of financial success. Because I think actually, if you're kind to people and you're positive and you've got a good work ethic, I don't really think you can go far wrong. And actually, those would probably be the things I'd rather hear someone go, "Oh, your son's doing well. He's I just saw him in a brand new Bugatti or something." I wouldn't be that interested. Whereas if he said, "Oh, your son's helping out at a soup kitchen," I'd be like, "You know what? Some of the things I did along the way worked. He picked up some of the right stuff, and that's good." Because I think it's the stuff that I think there's a saying: people never remember what you did or said, but they always remember how you made them feel. And I think that's pretty much true. You think about people who've come and gone in your life, they either made you feel good or they made you feel bad. And we have such a massive opportunity the minute you step out the front door to either be, the light at the end of the tunnel or part of the problem.
Right. The other thing too, James, is there's one thing to write a book for strangers to read or create a podcast for strangers to listen to who you may never meet. It's another thing to address the audience inside your own home. So you have kids that are looking up to you, a partner that's looking to you as a spouse. That's a different audience. These people know you, right? And they're watching you and they're learning from you.
Yeah.
They might not always pick up on every word, but they pick up on your actions and how you treat yourself as a dad, as a man. Talk a little bit about the importance of demonstrating being a father and a good caring man within your home to your kids and to your partner. How important is that to you as this audience is watching?
Yeah, it's vital. I mean, I think it would be. I don't want to look back and regret any of the things. I don't want them to be because there'll be a time when my influence. I imagine the older they get, the more my influence diminishes. A 13-year-old is not going to care as much about what I think, in my opinion, as a 9-year-old. It's just the older they get, the more they become their own people, and the more they are they're going to be influenced by other people, and they're going to look to other people. So it's really important. While I've got the time and I can influence them in a positive way, it's really important.
Okay, so James, before we go again, who is this book going to benefit? Who should buy the book? Who should gift the book to somebody? Give us some direction about who the best reader is for this book.
I think this book has been read by. I think this book would be great for someone who's about to become a parent, whether that be a father or a mother. I also think actually someone who's been through the process would get something from this book, because I think you might look back and remember. I mean, me and my wife, as I was writing this, she said, having read it, there was loads of stuff in there that she completely forgot about, and it was cathartic and it was amusing. And so I think, first time dad, it's for a first time dad, particularly someone who may be worried about how it might negatively impact their mental health.
Right. See, I love that. Okay, so James, where's the best place to find the book then? And also, where's the best place to contact you beyond the podcast that you have, Dad Mind Matters? Where's the best place to reach out to you and have a conversation with you?
They can find the book on Amazon. If you put First Time Dad into Amazon, it will come up as First Time Dad by James Macdonald. To contact me, you can contact me via my email, which is mydadmissions@gmail.com. Or if you put Dad Mind Matters, it's on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. you can contact me
James,
there.
thank you so much for making time to be on the podcast and share about your book. It's exciting.
It's been brilliant. Thank you so much for having me as a guest.
Great. And we have a new podcast to listen to, everyone. Go and check out Dad Mind Matters. I've been listening. I love it. Bite-sized pieces. They're not long episodes. You get in, you'll love it. And I know you're going to enjoy being a part of James's community. James, thank you so much for being part of the show. Really glad to have you here.
You're welcome. Thanks, David.
Thanks for listening to Dad Space today. Go check us out on all of our social media, YouTube, all that great stuff. You can find us as Dad Space Podcast. Real simple. Dad Space Podcast, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, even YouTube. Email us, dadspacepodcast@gmail.com. We're always looking for great guests to come on the podcast. If you have any feedback for us, let us know here at Dad Space. Looking forward to connecting with you on the next episode, right here of Dad Space. Follow us on your podcast app for more. Cheers. To you, Dad. Thank you.